Hello there friends, Mr. E here, and today we will be tackling the somewhat daunting task, but hey, I've been here a few times before, of ranking all of the ranged weapons in Darktide. Oh boy, I actually really love doing these, and I did one less than 2 months ago as of time of publishing, but the reason I gotta do it again is because we just had an update. We just had the Beyond the Hive update, patch, who knows what the patch notes or patch numbers are of Darktide, but basically, a lot of these weapons were changed in some way, shape, or form, and we also saw some relatively sizable changes to several classes, especially ones that have ranged archetypes. So the Hive Scum and the Ogryn, I'm looking at you. And what this really did is shake up the viability of some of their weapon choices here. So I really wanted to come back in here and give you guys the most up-to-date information in my approximation of what the solid weapons are right now. And I want to be clear that I am by no means the de facto expert on everything here. I don't have time to play with all these weapons, but I can say with a really high level of certainty, the stuff at the very bottom and the very top of the list are gonna be relatively like where they belong, right? There's a reason you don't see players using these, or you do see a ton of players using them. It's because of their power levels. Players can intuit that for themselves. But then there's a lot of stuff in the middle where it's like, it comes down to personal preference and a lot of it also skill. So, yeah, let's get underway here. Of course, we're doing range weapons only today, and then I'll do melee weapons, and then I'm going to do the classes, which I haven't done since sometime in December, and oh boy, the classes have evolved quite a bit in this first part of the year, so I anticipate, especially talking about Hive Scum. But let's focus on range weapons for now. Let's not let my ADHD get the best of me. We are going to be ranking in 5 categories, as per usual. We're not using the standard D through S. We're going to have like more specific categories that mean something. So at the very bottom here in green we have, I feel about this gun how my dad feels about me, which is to say, not angry, not mad, just disappointed. These guns have had so many chances, they have passed by so many updates, and never received any buffs. They are just languishing in low damage, low accuracy, no synergies, generally like all of these together in one big bundle, and like though they can be used in like some meme builds, and I did make some carve outs for like Hive Scum only last time, you can just find better options. There's just always a better option for these weapons, and it hurts my heart that there's actually quite a few down here, and you'll see that they all have something in common, which is really sad that we can't get this sort of sorted out or something figured out. Maybe it'll happen this year, or maybe perhaps probably never. Okay, let's go on to the second, the yellow tier, only used by less than 10 or greater than 5,000 hours players. Yeah, basically exactly what it says there, right? There's sort of a horseshoe theory with Darktide weapons. I've noticed when you start out, you just grab whatever weapons the shop offers you and you play with it for a while, and so you'll play with a weapon that's most people know is like jank trash, and then you'll realize that, oh shit, here's a weapon that's like meta, and you'll play with it for 1,000 hours because it's super good and it actually like, carries and wins games. But then you'll get like really, really good, and you'll get bored of playing with the stuff that's also good, and you'll curve back around and you'll end up where you started, of playing with the jank kind of bad weapons. And then the worst part is sometimes you'll gaslight yourself into being like, yeah, no, this isn't as good as like the best weapons in the game. But that's just because like you're at that level of play at that point where you could make pretty much like a stick work as a weapon, and it would suffice. Yeah, for most people, like, this is going to be low in the power structure, but you can make it work at this level. It's just going to be kind of a meme. Then we have what I think is probably like the baseline of like solid weapon. Well, I mean, it's literally called solid. Like, these weapons are the standard. Like, this should be the standard that weapons are designed towards, I think. More powerful than this, we're getting a little excessive. It's, not that I hate weapons that are more powerful than this, but like, there is a bit of power creep going on, which is why the next tier up is called power creep. Power creep is exactly what it sounds like, right? We are taking something that is existing. Generally, these weapons are similar in some respect to weapons that are down here, especially in the solid tier, and they're just bumped up in some manner. Like they just have more ammo supply, better blessings, better accuracy, better damage, whatever it is, right? They are just power crept up. They have better overall stats. And for range weapons in particular, a lot of stuff does come down to just raw stats. Because, yeah, you gotta be able to get a certain amount of damage out of every ammo that you fire. And so there's a bias towards weapons that are high damage, you know, no ammo consumption or low ammo consumption, or literally no ammo consumption in the case of like staves and stuff. And then finally, at the very top of the list, we have overkill, which is exactly what it sounds like. Overkill. Yeah, these weapons have no business being this strong. They just do not work within the balance of Darktide, really. Like, it doesn't make any sense that you can expend so little effort and so little resource to generate that much damage to erase that many enemies when other like weapons and other characters have to work for it, like actually work for it. And yeah, it just kind of throws the question of like, okay, what are we doing here out in terms of like balance? Because you get weapons that have to spend 1/4 of their magazine or 1/4 of their entire ammo capacity to deal the damage you do one shot. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, that's our overall structure here. And yeah, if you have any thoughts or comments, leave them down below, and subscribe if you want to hear more about Darktide stuff. Of course, I try to produce something at least like every day or every other day. And yeah, I'm not disappointing you guys too much lately, hopefully. Anyway, let's get underway here. I'm going to start with a rather large category, or like a mega category of weapons, which is shotguns. There's a lot of shotguns in the game right now, so we're going to start with the most standard of standard shotguns, and therefore they're going to go in the solid tier, the combat shotguns, aka the assault shotguns, I believe they're also called. But these weapons are like the de facto solid weapons. They used to be on the weak side, I would say, but with these weapons getting a big buff in, I think it was like 2 major patches ago, about 6 months ago, these weapons saw a pretty sizable glow up. And what they did is they added more ammo to them, they added more base damage, they made them have a much faster movement speed. So yeah, these weapons are very mobile. They're assault shotguns, right? So you're supposed to run and gun with them. They're pretty dang quick to draw. They're relatively accurate, quite honestly. You know, they kind of feel like real life shotguns. Have you ever fired a shotgun? You know what I mean? Like, you know, in movies and with certain weapons in certain games, it feels like the shotgun just kind of disappears after about 3 feet, like in Halo. These shotguns do travel quite a long distance, and so they're excellent anti-flak armor or less. You know, gunners or shotgunners are getting knocked out by these guys. You also have very solid anti-special capabilities here, because most trappers and flamers and stuff dying in 1 or 2 shots. They also have really high like impact, so the stopping power of these is really, really good, meaning like, yeah, if the trapper comes in for you, maybe you don't kill her on the first shot, but she'll at least get like almost killed and knocked to the floor, so she's definitely not getting that shot off, and you can finish her off. There's 3 variants here. We have the duckbill, which fires like sort of a horizontal spread with its special shell. We have the slug, which fires a slug projectile, which is very accurate with a special shell. And we have the incendiary, which fires a spread of incendiary rounds, which add burn stacks. All of them are roughly equally playable. For my money, I've always liked the incendiary one because burn stacks are really good. But I also like playing with the slug one because it's more precise. But yeah, there's merits to all of them. I think the only thing that really holds these weapons back is they are almost useless against anything with like over a certain threshold of health, right? So you're going to end up pumping like too many rounds to kill larger targets, and then you run into the reload problem, right? Because of course these are not magazine fed. They are like, you have to keep putting the shells in over and over, and they have like 9 in the tube. So you end up spending a long time reloading these, and the worst feeling is just you swap these, because it's really fast to swap and pull it out and shoot something, but then you'll swap back and go to melee, and then you'll swap back to shoot again, and you'll realize you forgot to reload, and you end up like, yeah, having to actively reload in the middle of a combat, and it doesn't feel great. So yeah, but they, you know, overall general shotgun sort of drawback, supply, not good against armor, etc. But hey, they are doing a lot better than they were, and I would say they are perfectly solid for the standard of Darktide right now. Now compare that to a shotgun that I think is a tier above. That is a power crept normal shotgun, which is the Arbites shotgun. Now this makes sense. This was like a selling point for the class, and the Arbites is supposed to have a powerful shotgun. It's called the Executioner shotgun for a reason, but this thing has way more damage. It is very noticeable when you fire one of these shotguns. Granted, they do have less ammo, not like a whole lot less ammo, but they have less ammo. And when you fire one of these, stuff dies, like stuff really dies. Whereas these shotguns, like specials and stuff, will sometimes survive the shot. Nothing really survives the Arbites shotgun, and you can fire the sort of blunt nose, the Mark III, at hordes and just level the whole thing because it has a horizontal spread, or you can use the long nose barrel and like counter snipe and counter gunner pick. This thing can hit headshots and do some pretty tremendous damage at really absurd ranges because it has a high minimum pellet count, meaning that like if one pellet touches the enemy, it counts as like 3, and it does really high base damage. So that's some solid damage coming out. Now they also have another power creep feature, which is that their special shells, you get 6 of them and they are free. They do not count towards your overall ammo count. When you load the special shells with these, you must load them one at a time, and they cost an ammo from your reserve. These special shells, every time you pick up any supply of ammo, be it even a small pack of ammo, you'll get all 6 of those shells back. And those 6 shells are potentially very game-changing. So the long nose ones are probably, well, they're definitely weaker. They do apply a brittleness debuff to enemies, so you can soften up targets for yourself or your team. That's good. But the real winner here is the Mark III here with the shock shells, because these things apply electrocution to all enemies hit, and that will paralyze enemies and deal damage over time to them for like 5 seconds, which can be insanely synergistic with a ton of stuff in the class. You just have to blast them, hit them with a bunch of electric shell, and then follow up on them. You know, you got a bulwark who won't open a shield, electrocute them with your free, more or less free shotgun shell, and then you go in and kill them. So yeah, really good for clutching out a situation when you got a bunch of enemies that are grouped up, dangerous, they're following you. Shock them, make some distance, or shock them and get the res, whatever it is. Really, really solid. And you can only get more value the more you remember to use those special shells as you're playing. From there, in terms of shotguns, let's go down a bunch in terms of power and talk about the Ripper guns, which the Ripper guns are the Ogryn's, I believe you would consider this a shotgun. They're considered a shotgun in the lore, but they really just don't feel like much of anything. The Ripper guns, to me, I had a hard time placing what it was that these weapons reminded me of a lot until like last weekend. They remind me of Roadhog's scrap gun in Overwatch, because that gun can like kill things at literal point blank range and no distance past. Of course, it has the alternate fire where you fire like the chunk of metal and then it spreads out. But for the primary fire, it's literally like 2 feet of doing damage, and then you'll do like tickling damage past that. And these have a very similar feel because they are so clunky to play with. They take so long to like equip and hold. And for the Ogryn to be wielding these weapons and feel as encumbered as he does, I would imagine these weapons were like 3 times the size and 3 times the weight and bulk. But no, it's like a really relatively small, manageable weapon, and yet he is so slow to draw this thing and brace it and wield it, and he can't hold it on target. And what ends up happening is you end up seeing, like, you know, players that are going boom, 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 and or whether or not using the 2-shot one, or the 1-shot one, or the burst, like, to me, all of it just kind of blends together, because I've never seen one where I'm like, wow, that damage is actually respectable. It's always like you could be doing the exact same thing with way less ammo consumption, and you wouldn't have these situations where, you know, you've got a flamer who you end up having to shoot 5 shots at because, like, coincidentally, the spread is so high that it just can't hit that one target. And what they did in this recent patch is they buffed this weapon, but the only thing they buffed is they made it so the bayonet stab counts as a heavy attack, which is an interesting buff, but it doesn't address the underlying issues, which is this weapon sucks at being ranged. And the Ogryn really, right now, in terms of like a class, really lacks for a revolver option where he can quickly swap and draw a weapon and blast away an incoming trapper or dog, a mutant or something. His best weapons do that for him. Generally, they effect an immediate change and immediately get rid of a target. This gun will sometimes like just take forever to kill something, and of course it like sucks against anything at any sort of range. So yeah, I think that this weapon should be wieldable like what was that? Was it called a mauler? What was that weapon? The brute handheld shotgun in Halo 3, you know what I'm talking about? I think that was actually called like the Mauler or something, wasn't it? But yeah, that's what this gun should be, I feel like. The Ogryn should be able to dual wield these, and then it would be justified that it does no damage, except at close range. If they gave these things way more ammo, like doubled their ammo capacity, maybe then, and then you could like spray and pray. But right now, they use up all their ammo and they do effectively nothing. I'm gonna put them down here. I've definitely seen some players who are over 5k hours who are trying to make this thing work, and sure, you can make it work, but I promise you that, like, yeah, it's definitely very low in terms of like overall power for what you could be doing instead on the class. And we'll come back around and talk about more stuff on the class after we finish our shotguns. Well, I guess we are going to continue talking about the class because we have only 2 more shotguns. Let's go ahead and do the Ogryn, one of those shotguns, the kickback, which I know is on here somewhere. I remember putting it on here. But anyway, I'll talk about the kickback. There he is. So the kickback has one main drawback, right? Which is that it's a single shot weapon. If you don't kill on that first shot, you are then having to reload and fire again to get the second shot to kill. So you wasted twice as much ammo and a bunch more time, like 3 times the time or longer to reload a shot. Because between like firing 2 shots, I would say you probably spend 70% of your time just reloading for the shot. And that feels bad. So this weapon used to be one of the best in the class back in a state of the game where Auric was the highest difficulty and enemy healths and enemy quantities and the amount of armor on the map was way lower. And back then, Point Blank Barrage actually had a buff on it that made you do 30% additional damage with 30% rending, and you could like 2-piece crushers with this, and that was awesome. But then Point Blank Barrage got nerfed, and over time, the power creep of the enemies has gone up and up. So there's so many more enemies now, like, for instance, the Scab Ragers who have Carapace armored chest plates, and just the overabundance of maulers and high hitmass enemies like that, and of course the ever-present Crusher, that this weapon does nothing to. And especially if you are playing into Havoc, where enemy health values are boosted by up to 50%, you're going to encounter a lot more situations where you pop one shot off at a target to try and kill them, and they don't die, and then you're left in a really bad spot, because you have to reload in the middle of combat. And this also is like an anti-synergy with Ogryn's range damage, because he wants to use the talent called, what's it? The bracing talent, I always forget, steady grip. And so if you can't brace with this weapon because you're actively reloading, you aren't regenerating stamina aren't regenerating toughness every second, and that can kill you. That can actually kill you because yeah, this weapon will force you out of that animation in order to reload and shoot if you fired the shot, which I hate. I hate that you can't just like not reload the gun and brace it. But that is the sad spot Ogryn's stuck in. So I'm going to put this one in... I kind of think it belongs down here, to be quite honest with you. I just don't think it's honestly on the level of usefulness that these other ones in the solid tier are. It's on the upper side. It's definitely better than the Ripper guns, but I would say that it's definitely a weapon that you would use earlier in your playthrough, and then when you get into Havoc, you'll drop it entirely. Like, you'll never see it in a Havoc game, and then you'll start to like come around that horseshoe theory, and you'll see like super try-hard like players who have played millions of hours using it again because they're just trying to use anything but the grenade gauntlet. Although I think you have it hard enough on yourself playing Ogryn these days without intentionally nerfing yourself by taking bad weapons. Anyway, moving from there, we've got one more shotgun, which is the double-barreled shotgun. Double-barreled shotgun, it's always kind of been like a meme where it had good synergies with classes that could replenish shells in the magazine for free, because of course it's got 2 shells and each shell is pretty powerful. So you can just cheat out free shells on the Arbites now, with Castigator Stance being able to reload 1 shell every time you get a kill. You can also do the same thing on Weapon Specialist Veteran by swapping back and forth every time you get a melee kill. That's pretty fun. And the Hive Scum could actually do it on launch as well, because Pickpocket used to trigger on range attacks, and Pickpocket also used to just replenish the magazine instead of replenishing your reserve. And so you could just endlessly chain shots, which is pretty fun. But this weapon has, outside of those like kind of niche synergies, I don't really know what it's offering, because this is the Halo shotgun, more or less. This is exactly what I was talking about before. This weapon might as well not exist to enemies that are over 20 feet away from you. You know what I mean? You can't really hurt anything at a distance, and if you can't guarantee a kill on a closing trapper with your ranged weapon, I think it's generally kind of a pretty bad ranged weapon, unless it's got some other sort of special use that you're using it for, because that's what you'd want in that situation, right? If you're going for a melee ranged hybrid, you'd want to be able to pick off those dangerous targets. And for my money, when I have a shotgun like this, the power threshold that it needs to fit is it needs to be more powerful than just continuing to stay on my melee attack. And for most weapons in the game right now, or for most melee weapons, I kind of feel like it's better. Like if you just had the dueling sword in this, primary, secondary, what's the point of swapping off of your primary dueling sword to shoot with the shotgun? Because the dueling sword would do more damage if you just stayed on it. So, and you can only use it at the same range you can stab with the dueling sword. So yeah, I just don't understand the use case right now. I'm gonna put it down here in terms of, I don't really see almost anybody running this these days, again, outside of very experienced players who are just trying to make a build with it, or like me, who I'm trying to make a build guide and put it out just for something fun and some variety. But I would love to see some buffs to this weapon, maybe a different mark or something with, like, I don't know, like explosive shells or something interesting to give it a little bit of variety, because right now it just gets entirely blocked by all sorts of armor, and I could be doing that level of damage at melee range with my melee weapon. Okay, so that's all the shotguns, I believe. Yeah, am I missing any? I don't think so. Okay, so that wraps up shotguns. What should we go into next? Let's hit another really big category of weapons, which is autoguns. And we've got a lot of them to pick from. We've got the vigilant autoguns, we've got the braced autoguns, we've got the infantry autoguns, and man, at least I can cut out this part of the video pretty quickly. Let's go ahead and talk about infantry autoguns, because they are the closest to being salvageable out of these three. These are going to go in the I feel about this gun how my dad feels about me tier. Yeah, they're just a disappointment. Like, they have had so many chances to be buffed, they've had so many chances to move up in that power structure, and they have been passed over time and time again. And I think what happened was, back in the very early nascent days of Darktide, the Vrax, which used to be called the Columbus Mark V here, was among the most powerful weapons in the game. I think it actually was like the best OG range weapon. The reason for that was that this weapon had a crit chain of 4. And what that means is, if you're unaware, is that when automatic weapons crit, they don't just crit for that bullet, but the next X amount of bullets will also be critical strikes. So this weapon has a really high critical ratio, and meaning that when it crits, it does a lot of damage. And then you would get 4 bullets in a row that would all be crits. So if you had like an effective 30-ish% crit rate, you would end up dealing like 60% of your shots would be crits, because you'd hit these big long streaks just blasting damage. And it was really, really good. So they nerfed it and nerfed it and nerfed it, and now it's at a crit chain of 2. And the other thing that's really hurt is that the ammo economy on this weapon has always been kind of bad, but the density of enemies in the level was never at the point where you would ever really go through it. So back in the day when Auric was the highest difficulty, you know, you could spend the ammo to like blast and blow away a horde or kill like 2 maulers, but now when you have to spend a half a mag to kill a mauler, that's not a good proposition anymore. This weapon only holds 10 mags, so you're using 5% of your ammo to kill that mauler. A recon lasgun, which is the direct comparison we're going to make in a little bit, but a recon lasgun can kill a mauler in like 1/10 of 1 mag, or less, depending on how lucky you get with your crits on veteran. So yeah, the efficiency is just terrible on these things. In the last time around where I did this, I gave this a pass on with the caveat that the Hive scum can get some value out of it, because he obviously can replenish ammo infinitely using pickpocket, but they've nerfed pickpocket now, so you have to go get a melee kill. And since this weapon blows through ammo so fast, you're going to have to be resetting and getting those melee kills over and over and over again, which means you're going to be spending like so much time just getting your ammo back. And yeah, that just cuts into the bottom lines. It'd be pretty good with Desperado, I'd have to imagine, but I think there's better weapons at this point in terms of that. And I think these other two are just kind of out. These guns are just, I want bullet-based weapons to be so good, and none of them are right now. And that'll bring me to the second set, which is the braced autoguns here. The braced autoguns are like even worse than this. The braced autoguns are the twin link stubbers of the humanoid classes, and it's unfortunate because they're available in all of the humanoid classes. Like every class gets access to these, except for the Ogryn, and they're bad. They're bad in a variety of ways because you have a accuracy problem here. Of course, you can't hit anything over like close medium range because you can't actually aim, you can only brace. When you brace, you move like a snail, and these weapons have no crit synergy at all. And right now in the game, having crit synergy is like the thing. Like if you can't crit, you better have something else going on or else you're dealing no damage. And these weapons have kind of low, they have like mid damage, I'd say. But because they can't get headshots effectively because you can't aim and you can't crit, you're not going to get any boosts to that damage. Compare that to a weapon that might have a similar looking damage number, but can actually aim and get headshots. You're going to be falling way behind. And so what you end up doing here is spending way more bullets than you otherwise should to get kills on targets. And again, this is a weapon that's only effective at close to medium range, which means that you should just be going in and meleeing these targets anyway, instead of just shooting at them. So I'm guilty. I've made builds of these before. I want to love the space AK, right? I want to run up to enemies and go daka daka and shoot them in the chest instead of actually meleeing them. But now we have the Hive Scum, and like the Hive Scum, right, ostensibly should be the perfect character for this. Put the barrel point and blank at the enemy's chest, pull the trigger, you know, going guns a-blazing. But literally, I've tried every weapon, every range weapon on that class, and every other automatic weapon on him is better than this. Like, this is the worst one of all of them, which is so sad to say. So the braced autogun needs so much help. It needs to have something, right? It can't be no crit, no accuracy. Like, that just doesn't fly in the current era. And then we've got one more autogun, which is the Vigilant autoguns. Good God, they tried with these things. They actually gave them a buff like 6 months ago or so, and it didn't amount to much of anything. We ended up having like a help to their recoil, which was absurd, and it still kind of is. They made it so the damage, the base damage on the bullets is reasonable now, that you don't have to always hit headshots in order to get damage done. But the problem here is that, like, okay, like, yes, now I can like do some damage, right? But the targets that you need to be killing, if you're using these, are supposed to be like sniper style, like DMR weapons, right? They're single shot, or one of them actually like shoots a burst of 2 shots, but they're supposed to be DMR style weapons, and they have absolutely no anti-armor capabilities. They are like quote unquote sniper style weapons with no sights, so you're iron sighting on these motherfuckers, and they have terrible iron sights, so you can't even see what you're aiming at, and the recoil is terrible. So like, how are you gonna snipe with this weapon that has no sights, no armor penetration? Like, you're not killing in a single shot. It feels like you are sniping, like, and the report on these weapons, like, not to make too much about aesthetics or like the sound design or whatever, but this weapon feels like when I shoot like a 22 like long rifle or something. It's like I'm shooting. Like if there was a rifle chambered in 9mm, that's what I feel like I'm shooting. Like, it does almost no damage, or really just feels like it has no damage, and then it effectively, like, if you're not hitting a headshot, if you're not hitting a crit and a headshot, generally you're doing fuck all. And so what's the point? Like, why would I ever use this? Why would I subject myself to using a weapon where I have to aim precisely in order to get any value out of it, and also it has like none of the additional benefits that a ton of other weapons like get access to, that can just run and gun and blast and deal 3 times, 4 times the damage casually without even batting an eye. You can do more damage than these. And yeah, add to that, they have 0 effectiveness against armor. There's 0 like redeeming unique blessings here. Yeah, these things are a piece of work, and all of these weapons are from a very early era of Darktide, where like these were clearly, like, whoever designed these weapons, they designed all of them together because they all share common elements. They feel very realistic. They feel like someone was thinking about a different balance state of Darktide than what we ended up in. Everything else here has been like video gamified, and these are living in like the Call of Duty era. Yeah, these feel like weapons that you would have in Rust and not in Darktide. So yeah, I think I could put it no better way than that. And yeah, so these are all the bottom of the barrel. I don't think there's really much else that is going to go down here, so I'm happy to move up. And I did mention, offhandedly there, I did briefly mention the Ogryn Twin Link Stubber. I'm going to move this guy up. He was in my bottom of the barrel before, but I'm going to move him up to this tier right here. You know, I've been a Twin Link Stubber hater for a while. He did just recently get a buff to Point Blank Barrage, which still has way too long a cooldown, but hey, at least you can get some ammo back now. And these weapons also got like triple buffs. They got a buff to their damage. They got a buff to their attack damage modifiers, which means they have better damage against certain armor types. They got a buff to their accuracy and their recoil reduction. So these weapons are overall better, and they buff the major synergy with the class, which is supposed to be Point Blank Barrage. Now, long gone are the days with Point Blank Barrage having the 32 possible stacks of fire and then melting a boss in a fraction of a millisecond with the Ackless Twin Link Stubber. But hey, you know, you could at least still get it stacked to 16 relatively reasonably. We have 3 variants here. We have the Gorgonum, the Ackless, I think this is the light firing one, I think this is the middle one. I always forget the name of it, but you know, I think it's a flavor thing here. I think the middle one is probably where I'm at. The Ackless is too fast firing, and it tends to not really actually kill anything. I feel like I'm just shooting and like pushing food around on my plate basically with my bullets. The Gorgonum is just too encumbering for me. Yes, it's like individual bullets will chunk stuff, and it can actually deal damage to Carapace, kind of, sorta. But yeah, I kind of prefer the middle one. Now, the thing that I hate about Ogryn weapons in general, these weapons are still running afoul of, and this is why I'm putting them down here, is like, okay, the Ogryn doesn't need, outside of when he's going gun Ogryn, the Ogryn's assets to the team is not benefited by having a weapon that is super slow to draw and only really does its damage at like close medium range, right? Like, you're not counter sniping with these. So you're ending up putting yourself in a situation where you're blasting a bunch of ammo, like you're just shooting out ammo in order to deal, I would say, arguably about the same amount of damage that you could do if you were just meleeing, right? So I don't quite yet think that ranged Ogryn is there to the point where I should be using this as like a main damage weapon on the class, and I also don't feel like this is a good sidearm for Ogryn because it doesn't really address his needs, which is to pull out a range weapon that very quickly affects some big change. And that's where things like the Grenade Gauntlet and the Rumbler, like those weapons win for him, is because you can whip it out and you can immediately like just don't and blow up something that would be dangerous. This is like you're pulling it out and then you just start shooting after like a long ass equipping animation, and then bracing takes even longer, which you have to stop during for some reason. One thing that it is really good for is like sustaining your toughness with this is like bonkers easy, because now Steady Grip activates when you're firing, and you can get near constant procs of Point Blank Barrage with it. So yeah, this is probably the best user of Point Blank Barrage currently, generally speaking. But yeah, I still think it has a ways to go. I would love to see, again, I think so much of the Ogryn's class's problems with ranged weapons is that he, by far, has the worst feeling experience of just like fucking getting his ranged weapon into his hands and firing it and being on the damn target. I have no idea why this guy, who's supposedly like, you know, able to suplex a fucking Space Marine, can't hold a gun steady and point it at a single target. Maybe he's too stupid to know how to aim or something. I don't know what the deal is there, but yeah, give me like actual braced movement speed with this thing. Give me the ability to dual wield these motherfuckers. If the Ogryn could be dual wielding weapons, then his ranged archetype would be something to write home about. But right now, I'm gonna put it down here until I see further improvements. Make it happen, Fat Shark. Okay, that is all the DACA done. No, there's one more DACA weapon. The Shredder Pistol. The Shredder Auto Pistol is an absolutely solid little workhorse weapon. This is a good sidearm. It's a really solid sidearm on pretty much every class who can have it. I will say the classes that really excel with it are the Hive Scum, the Zealot, and the Arbites. The reason being is that the Arbites has a great synergy between himself and staggering enemies, and this weapon has a really high base stagger already, so you can have something like Forceful on your build for Arbites, stack up your ability to impact enemies, and then stagger them really easily with the Shredder Pistol, because it builds strength as you're firing with Blaze Away. And then it also has a bonus really solid talent called Inspiring Barrage that can regenerate your toughness for you. So when you're using this thing and you get your toughness knocked down, well, sometimes you have to wait for an ability or, hit some enemies to charge it back up. But if you have this in your secondary, you can just pull it out and shoot like a half a mag at the floor and there goes your toughness. It fills right back up, which is awesome. Being able to do that on the fly, just as a way to just firing your gun while you're running across an open area to constantly sustain your toughness, using some ammo that, you have plenty of ammo on this thing. Honestly, it's way more ammo efficient than these infantry autoguns are. That's actually quite a nice little trade-off. I like that's synergies available. So this weapon ends up being a good little utility workhorse for the classes that are going to use it as a sidearm. And for the Hive Scum, you can actually use it as the main weapon of the build if you want to go for the Shredder auto pistol sort of build. And yeah, it's like laser accurate at range, especially if you take some of the recoil reduction stuff. For whatever reason, this weapon can go into pinpoint accuracy while running and gunning versus the infantry autogun, which can actually aim down sights instead of just bracing. Can't fucking hit shit past 35 feet. So yeah, I actually have refound my passion for Shredder auto pistol. Used to be one of the best weapons in the game back in the early days when Zealots were all running it, and then it fell way out of favor, and now it's back. I think it's in a solid place right now, and I'm very content with where it's at. Okay, now I think that's all the DACA bullet style weapons, right? I'm glancing across here. I'm not seeing any more DACAs. Okay, well, okay, here's one more. Okay, we got these boys. Okay, we gotta go power creep with these bad boys. Okay, these are the twin Uzis or twin auto pistols on the Hive Scum. Okay, these weapons, they are only accessible on the Hive Scum, and they would only ever be good on the Hive Scum because they eat the fuck out of ammo. These things absolutely inhale ammo, but Hive Scum gets to reload with Desperado for free, so you can use things like Speed Loader and just get pump a bunch of reloads during the duration of your Desperado. When you are into hordes and stuff like that, that's when these really shine, like mixed hordes with shotgunners and ragers and stuff, especially unarmored ragers. This thing is just slaying, and it can absolutely just pulp stuff in front of you. This weapon is also one of the weapons in the game. This Ripper gun and twin leg stubber on the Ogryn, I believe, all those weapons fuck captain shields for whatever reason. They hit that perfect minimum damage value against captain shields, so you just take these and you shoot a captain and it just breaks his shields pretty much instantly. And yeah, I think these weapons, if you're going for Desperado Hive Scum, this is probably the premier weapon for Desperado Hive Scum. I think you pretty much have to be using Speed Loader on them if you're doing that too, because that's going to give you the extra reload speed you need. The reload on these is kind of long, but they can kill a lot. They can do a lot of damage with their blasts, and they do have Blaze Away, which adds that damage a lot. It gives you a boost of up to 40% power, and then you can use Desperado while you're still in that Blaze Away and extend your spray down, so you end up dealing 3 times or 4 times as much boosted damage with it. Yeah, really power crept in terms of spray down weapons. Just a big brother version of the Shredder auto pistol, I would say. And the Hive Scum definitely makes some very solid use of them. Okay, now we're done with DACA bullet style weapons. Let's do a DACA laser style weapon with the Recon las guns, which are power creep. These are all power creep tier. So these weapons are there's no reason on the 3 classes that have access to these, the Zealot, the Psyker, and the Veteran, there's 0 reason to ever use any of these weapons when these exist, because these are more accurate. They have the same or faster movement speed. They have way better handling. They have way better ammo economies, and they have far superior blessings, such as, again, we have the Infernus blessing here, where you can stack 12 stacks of burn on an enemy. That effectively means if you can get 12 stacks of burn on any special, they're dead. A dog or a trapper or a flamer, they're dead from that point. And this also stacks with Dum Dum on the weapon, which means that when you're shooting any target, you're boosting that damage by, including the burns, by 30%. They are, on the Veteran especially, absurd because the Veteran can extend their ammo economy by 50% or more using Shock Trooper because you get free shots all the time. Yeah, these things are super synergistic with a ton of different builds, and pretty much if you're looking for a gun-focused build that is using a automatic weapon, this is your choice. And they have that really fast movement set of the 0.8 plus 0.8 movement speed if you max out your mobility, which you should, because the minimum stat on here is probably like collateral or stability. It probably wouldn't really matter either which way. This weapon is just super, super powerful, and it's so brain dead easy to use. You'll see me using it on a lot of my veteran builds because you can dish out damage. This weapon scales very well in like the end game because there's so many targets in that end game where you can just be holding on the trigger and swapping from target A to target B to target C and just lighting everything on the way on fire, and you're just spreading the wealth around, right? They scale with the number of enemies out there because they can just like get so many shots downrange on targets and apply those burn stacks so quickly. Yeah. In terms of which one is the best, because we have the fast firing one in the blue, the slow firing one in the brown, and this is the middle firing one. I have really gotten a lot of value, and I really love the middle firing one. It has the highest overall damage, and I think it fires fast enough that you can apply enough crits to get those burn stacks up, but it also has a really nice direct damage amount as well. So yeah, there's a good blend of the two there. And that's sort of how I feel about Recon. Super stable. They've been in a solid place for a while now, and I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. In terms of las guns, let's also talk las pistols. These are also power creep tier. We'll talk in a little bit about Hellbore las guns, but basically this is the heavy firing las pistol. This is the fast firing las pistol. The heavy firing las pistol does the damage of a Hellbore las gun, but you can just free ball it. You can just walk out there with this pistol in your hand and just go doo doo. It looks like a Star Wars blaster. But this thing, both of these pistols, they deal like 4 to 5x damage on critical headshots, and they have a huge like boost to critical damage, and it's very easy to hit heads because these weapons have 0 recoil. So these end up being superior weapons. These are like the best sidearm on Zealot, on Psyker. Like if you're using melee Psyker build, this is a perfect synergy with Scryer's Gaze to disrupt Destiny, because headshots and crits are so freaking huge for both of those things, for both Scryer's Gaze, Disrupt Destiny, and this gun. And also on Zealot, he's super mobile, and this helps him be even more mobile because this weapon has that super fast movement speed, just like the Recon does. So you can be sprinting around at the speed of light, and then also just going doo 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 with your gun, not even like worrying about, you're just casually kind of aiming all over the place. And of course, with the veteran, this weapon can be a hardcore carry because it synergizes with Shock Trooper. So if you might have seen my infinite las pistol build, you can literally achieve like 105 or 110% crit if you have the right team with you, even without veteran or the stim crate, the stim supply with the extra crit on it. So you can literally infinitely sustain ammo with it, and you'll put out Psyker levels of damage if you're just blasting randomly at head level. It's just the most brain dead experience possible, and I love it. So yeah, these weapons are power crept versions of like a ton of stuff, right? These weapons are power crept versions of Vigilant Autoguns, they're power crept versions of the Hellbore las guns, and they're hyper mobile to boot, and they actually have one extra special thing on them, which is the push attack, the little shove that you do when you weapon special with these, that actually basically is like a force field around your character. I've demonstrated it on streams and stuff before. I probably won't have it in the B-roll. I'm going to be quite honest with you. This will be random B-roll down here, but if you use the weapon special when there's a burster or a dog anywhere near you, it just works. Like it lasts for like 2 to 3 seconds, it feels like, and so it's almost impossible to get hit by a burster or a dog when you have one of these in your sidearm slot. So highly recommend, super fun, easy to use weapon. Let's also talk, since I was mentioning Hellbore, let's do Hellbore. I think Hellbores are probably in the solid category. I know some players would say like they're super powerful, they should be in power creep, but I think the usability, like the difficulty of learning these weapons and wielding them effectively and the pace of Darktide generally makes them too hard to use to get that power creep status out of for players, right? So much more commonly, you're going to just default to a weapon like the Recon las pistol, where you can run and gun. You could be meleeing 1 second, you can swap within a millisecond and go and just shoot like, 6 shots at some random trapper or something you saw out of the corner of your eye and knock them out. The Hellbore is a weapon for the thinking man, which is like, 1% of all people, where you have to methodically be like, okay, I want to get the right positioning, and then start to shoot, and you go, and you're aiming for heads. So you have to actually aim with this weapon, and that sucks, right? Having to actually aim blows in Darktide. What we want is a weapon where you can just kind of aim roughly in the general direction of the enemy and go, and then it dies. That's what you'll see in the upper tiers of weapons. Is like they don't give a fuck. Like you can just aim generally towards enemies and they're gonna die because their power level is that high. It's that crept up. So yeah, these weapons. They ask a lot from the wielder. They can provide a lot though. They can drop crushers and maulers no problem. One-shotting reapers, one-shotting the like charging mutants and stuff. And the bayonet attack is honestly pretty dang good against shields. Ironically enough, it's one of the better weapons at shredding those. But overall, yeah, I think they lag behind. They are not. I would say they're power creep weapons, right? They have a large amount of power. Don't get me wrong. They are very powerful. They are more powerful pound for pound than the shotguns are. However, the usability, like the ability to access that power, I think is really important when evaluating this. And so for many players, getting to that level of skill where you can hit the shots to get the juice out of it is not going to be an easy journey. So I'm going to put it down here. Alluding to the fact that they could potentially be powerful, but you gotta have those prerequisite skills to get the juice. Okay, and then let's do the sort of like the counterpart to those. These are the infantry las guns, which in this patch got a juicy buff. They got a increase to the diameter of their laser shots, meaning it's easier to hit targets. You might narrowly miss the headshot hitbox before, and now you'll hit it. So yeah, any increase to the width of projectiles is usually pretty dang good in terms of like landing shots being more gratuitous for players. That's important for these weapons because these weapons do want you to hit headshots, which is fortuitous because they do have sights to actually aim with. Oh, by the way, the las pistols are also good because they have sights. Like one of 2 weapons in the game that have frickin' sights. Holy shit, right? And yeah, so the infantry las guns, they do have sights. And the other thing they did for them in this patch is they extended their ammo capacity by like 20-25%, which makes these just the goats of ammo. Like you won't run out of ammo with these. Hellbores are in a similar situation, right? You'll never run out of ammo with a Hellbore because you simply are firing one shot, one kill. Now you'll probably shoot more than one shot to claim a kill with these infantry las guns. However, you have literally like hundreds of shots before you're out. In fact, these guns are so ammo efficient that I don't even take shock trooper with these when I'm running it on veteran, because the chances that you would actually run out before you find an ammo resupply, or even with just the passive generation that the veteran class has, which is probably the predominant class you'd want to use this on, is like, it's comical to think that you would actually run out with the sheer, like, you have like 700 shots with these. It's crazy. It's like 2.5 minutes if you fire at full speed until you can drain all of your mags, which is nuts. So yeah, these things are super hyper ammo efficient. They synergize very well with the executioner stance and being able to hunt down targets, as do Hellbores. And by the way, since we did have expeditions launch, I will point out that both of these weapons very good in expeditions, as are the las pistol and the recon las gun. But hey, the longer range weapons you have, the sniper weapons, especially the veteran class, very good in expeditions. But these weapons really solid alongside executioner stance because it's very easy to turn from one target to another, acquire a new target, and then just blast until they're dead. And their recoil is effectively 0. So good stuff. Okay, good stuff all around. Great. Let's go and do, well, I guess we were doing sniper weapons, so we can do the Ogryn snipers, which are these, the heavy stubbers, the individual heavy stubbers. I think these are perfectly solid as well. So I'm going to give these the solid tier. Reason being, I think that the heavy stubbers do fit with, I think they fit with like something that Ogryn might actually kind of need, which is eliminating long distance threats. That's like one thing that Ogryn is pretty poorly equipped to do, right? He's not very evasive. He can scarcely hide from things like gunners. And these weapons, of course, can also be braced, which will activate steady grip, and which is good. So he can counter snipe with these. Now, in terms of which one's the most usable, I think that perhaps I like the smallest one the best. I think this is called the Krork. I can never remember, but the smallest caliber one I think is the best for my purposes, because you know, these guns, these higher caliber ones end up being overkill a lot of times. Like they get heavy crit bonuses, and so you get these massive sniper crits, which can like do very good damage. You can kill crushers and stuff with them, but I just don't think that that's something that Ogryn really has any strengths in. I would much rather have this one because it equips a little bit faster, and I can pick off, you know, closing trappers and flamers and stuff, and it still has that accuracy at long range, where I can kill a sniper, counter snipe a sniper. I don't need the extra zoom these provide, but it is there. And these weapons are also very ammo efficient. Like you won't run out of ammo if you're using these. I think it'd be very unusual if you did. And they do have some pretty good synergies with like point blank barrage, because these weapons fire fast enough to apply the 4 stacks of blaze of fire, so you'll get 16 stacks of fire going with these and be dealing more damage, having better fire rates, having better damage. Yeah, they're not bad. I'd say all around they're a solid fit for the Ogryn class. Again, I wish you had one that grew a little bit faster, but hey, this is where we're at. Then in terms of snipers, we gotta talk the revolvers. I think the revolvers are in the solid tier as well. Now, let me be clear here. I love the revolver. Both the Zerona and the Agrippina, both these are really good, right? They have really solid damage. They can access the hand cannon blessing, which gives them 60% rending, which means you can like 2-piece crushers. Yeah, just good damage all around. The thing that's holding these back is the ammo count, right? There are weapons in the game that can kill targets in as many shots and have way more shots. So the problem for these weapons is that for most targets, like if you're using the Zerona, right, and you're going for a critical headshot, most targets are getting massively overkilled by this thing. Like, because it has a critical bonus that is to the moon, this thing is eviscerating everything short of a crusher. Like, it's blowing their heads clean off, and you'll be overkilling them by several thousand damage, like no joke. So this weapon ends up being overkill, and because it is such high damage, they compensated for that by making its ammo count lower. And you don't really effectively get that extra damage. You're just like absolutely fucking killing the shit out of some random ass trapper. And then you only do that like 60 times total, because the ammo capacity is like, I think it's like 67 or so. Wait, shit, I said the fucking number. 69. I'm gonna go back to the old funny number. It's like 69. And it's pretty nice, but it's nice and it's in that it's low. Like that's too low. Now the Fan the Hammer one does have a lot better ammo capacity. That's about 100 total. But that still to my taste really isn't enough. Unfortunately, these weapons, they are good at penetrating and killing armor, right? That is one thing they can do. They can snipe those armored targets. They can guarantee an instant kill on weapons. If you gave me like the machine from The Fly, and I was able to combine this weapon and this weapon, now we're talking, right? Give me a weapon that has the ammo efficiency of these Vigilant Autoguns, but a little bit more of that penetrative capability of the Zerona revolver here, and make it as stable as the revolver is too, because these things are pinpoint accurate. This is like the high caliber sniper rifle in this game. For whatever reason, the fucking revolver is like the deadliest sniper out here. You snap it onto the target, it is pinpoint, precision accurate. You will splatter that target's gray matter for the next kilometer. You'll hit them so hard, and it is like devastating against crushers and stuff if you're taking marksman's focus and executioner stance. However, again, I love playing that style, but it is so freaking overkill. You'll end a game, you'll have 600,000 damage, and you'll have 1 million overkill damage, because most targets are getting just absolutely creamed. There's no necessary. It's not necessary to run that much damage. So yeah, I think that's a hard place for this, like for the weapon to be balanced around. It's good anti-armor, but I wish it had I don't know. I wish it had something else. I wish you could get this. I wish you could get this one, the precision accuracy of this one with this one's ammo capacity. That'd be nice. Like drop the caliber of bullet a little bit, but still let me you know, shoot the shot. Because yeah, I would be good if it just killed everything up to and not crushers. That'd be fine. Whatever. I love the revolvers though. Well, I'll put them down here though. But then we got to go up a tier. One tier up from the revolver is the bolt pistol. Both variants of the bolt pistol are going to be in the power creep tier. So the power creep that's going on with the bolt pistol is that the bolt pistol is a magazine reload instead of a... Oh, by the way, the reload sucks in the revolvers. You know, reloading those things is annoying. Except for the fan the hammer one does has a speed loader, so that's pretty nice. But reloading individual shells on those Rona sucks. But this thing is a magazine fed. It still has really solid headshot damage, but it gets OP blessings. So the blessings that are OP here, one of them is the bleed blessing. Basically, if you shoot any target, the target that gets hit gets 4 stacks of bleed, and that's really, really good. 4 stacks of bleed isn't that much, but if you shoot them twice, 8 stacks of bleed is a lot. And so you end up being able to add a bunch of additional damage onto a target that you just popped twice. Not to mention the base damage of the weapons is pretty good. Then the other really, really strong blessing here is a synergy blessing that works really well with a lot of classes called proximity blast, whatever it is. You know the one. It says in the tooltip, plus 25% explosion radius. That doesn't just apply to the pistol. That applies as a passive buff to your whole class. So like the Ogryn has a talent in his talent tree that gives you 27.5% explosion radius. This is that, but all you have to do is have this equipped as your range weapon. And you get that on all your grenades, on whatever you do. And so this makes throwing grenades on Veteran just that much more deadly. And it's just really good. It works on RBDs. It works on Hive Scum with the rocket launcher, which is awesome. So yeah, this weapon, really, really good, really easy to use, very accurate, pretty decent ammo supply. It has a better ammo supply than the revolver does. And again, it can't single tap crushers like the revolver can, but it's killing like everything else. So all gunners and stuff in one headshot. So I don't really need that additional damage. What I like is some more quality of life stuff. And this one has it. So a great, super powerful sidearm and potentially build making synergies here. Speaking of explosive weapons, let's do the grenade gauntlet for the Ogryn. This, I don't think the Ogryn is, man, saying this is power creep is not. No, it's not on this level. The Ogryn is so beleaguered right now that, like, yeah, this is one of his best range weapons, but it's nowhere near the level of power of these other weapons. So the reason this weapon is good on Ogryn, though, is because this weapon is can be fired while staying braced. Unlike some other weapons that are like explosive on the weapon on the class, like the Rumbler, right? But you can fire it while staying braced, and it can be braced pretty much at any time to get a bunch of your toughest back using steady grip, which you notice is a recurring trend on the Ogryn. And the impact of the individual grenades is pretty dang good. Like a direct impact from this grenade will kill a lot of lesser elite targets. It will instantly kill things like trappers. The problem that I have with this weapon, and I've always had with it, and I've said it time and time again, is this weapon deserves to have a trajectory, like an aim trajectory line painted, just like the Rumbler does. Because the Rumbler will tell you when you're holding it, like, oh yeah, this grenade is going to go exactly here when you fire it, and that's very useful. For projectiles that have an arc, I think that's 100% should be a standard in the game, because like this weapon can counter snipe effectively. However, at distance, you have to end up like guessing basically how far it's going to drop in order to hit things, because there's no like on-screen reticle with some sort of like, you know, Dragonov style height gauge to gauge your distance. So yeah, that's one thing I wish for it. I think that they've put a lot of their eggs in the basket of making this weapon have some sort of weird hybrid melee range thing going on. I just don't think the melee side is working out. It is funny to see people punch stuff with it though and explode them. That's pretty fun. But in terms of the actual viability of that, I think it's kind of low. Yeah, overall, just a solid weapon as a secondary on the class. good disruptor, and as I said earlier, that's kind of what you want on an Ogryn weapon. You want it to be relatively quick to equip, which this weapon is, and you want it to immediately affect some disruption or get rid of that threatening target on the field. And speaking of, let's do the Ogryn's Rumbler. So I think that the Rumbler it's at the upper end of solid, lower end of power creep. The Rumbler is really limited on ammo, of course. However, I can't deny the fact that the Rumbler is effectively just a grenade, like a really fucking big grenade that any other class would probably like to have, right? It staggers everything in a massive radius around it. It does like 5,000 damage on its explosion to bosses, and this combined with some of the ammo refunds from our recently buffed Point Blank Barrage can pump a very, very large amount of damage and sow like just a ton of chaos wherever you aim it. So I would really recommend, if you're going to run this, you got to have a veteran, because you need to sustain that ammo. This weapon only has 33 max ammo, even when it has a 25% ammo boost from taking that talent on the class. So yeah, really pitiful low maximum ammo. However, you know, that's offset by the fact that every one of these is a fucking grenade. And it does have a really, really good blessing in that you can stick this to targets. You can also put brittleness on targets, which makes them more vulnerable to burn stacks, which you can also get through exploding next to targets with this class, or with the, with the Ogryn. Yeah, just a really powerful weapon. I generally just, when I'm playing like a melee build, I choose this as my range secondary, because yes, while the grenade gauntlet is good for like your tanking style builds, I find that knowing when to use a rumbler shot can like save a situation, right? If you need to get a pickup or a rescue or something, and you need that moment, if you just fire this at your feet and start the revive process, it'll detonate like on top of your person while you're doing that and clear everything around you because the explosion radius is so big. And yeah, that can buy you a ton of time. So just being a massive, massive game-changing disruptor like that, I think puts it a tier ahead. And of course, because it has such a massive blast radius, it scales better into the end game of Havoc, where there's just insane density, than the other weapons do. And so I think it just is hands down the most powerful Ogryn range weapon right now. Now, since we did all the Ogryn weapons, and we haven't even touched on Psyker, oh, I forgot to put the Vigilant Autogun, or maybe I didn't forget, and I just somehow got it down there. Yeah, Vigilant Autogun's at the bottom. But let's do Psyker while we're at it. So Psyker has 4 stabs. We can go ahead and knock out, let's just do 2 of them really quickly. I'm going to do the lower 2. So we got the Electrokinetic Staff and the Void Strike Staff. Fuck. The Electrokinetic Staff is just, like, it has one thing you do with it, which is just spamming the light attack. Like, the electrocution part of it sucks so bad right now. It doesn't kill anything. It generates so much peril for no reason. Like a fully charged electrocution zappy zap hits like 3 total targets. If it doesn't crit, it does 0 damage. And then it also generates like 50% of your peril. It's stupid how fast you'll overload with this thing. And you can notice it, like, you know, I've played builds with like Scryer's Gaze with Warp Unbound, where you can just cast as much as you want for 11 seconds after you overload, and you'll literally get fuck all done, even if you're casting full time. So the only way to play with this thing is constantly spamming left click, which is really no way to live, right? That just shouldn't be an archetype for stabs in the game. I think that's boring as fuck. So, I'm gonna put it in the lowest possible tier. I'm gonna put it way down here. I think this is buns. I think this needs a total rework in terms of like what it can do. Sure, you can spam light attacks, whoop-de-doo. That can be pretty powerful, I guess. But like, on the whole, as for what the weapon can do, if I'm doing that, why am I not just running the las pistol, right? Like the las pistol, yes, you'll use ammo, but you will do way more damage spamming las pistol and getting 4x damage headshots plus burn stacks than you would ever do just spamming the lightning staff. You know, get at me, macro abusers, etc. So yeah, I think that the Electrokinetic Staff, it just needs such big buffs to the electric zappy zap mode. That's what people want to use the staff for, right? Nobody wants to use the staff to spam fucking weak ass little bolts of balls. They want to use the special magic ability, not the stupid like Binding of Isaac tier ability. Speaking of balls, Void Strike Staff, you know, big blasty orb that comes on through. The Void Strike Staff, I would say it's better than the electrokinetic staff. It's definitely better than all these things down here. Actually, I don't even know if the electrokinetic staff deserves to be down here. It's not as dog shit as all these are, but it's pretty damn close. I'm gonna leave it down here, but at the top end, I guess that's how I'm ranking him. But yeah, the Void Strike staff is better than the electrokinetic staff because it can actually do damage. The problem is that the game has kind of left the Void Strike staff in the past. This was better in the past when you could see long distance engagements coming. You know, when enemies were predictable in the directions they came from and they were kind of limited in number, you would charge up a ball and you would blast through the whole pack and it would deal crit damage because you would get the talent where like 5 headshots in a row would guarantee a crit and it would activate on this and would kill everything. And they nerfed that synergy, unfortunately. But yeah, really because the game is so much more intense and fast paced now and this weapon charges slow as fuck, you really just don't have the space or the time to get a charge shot off. And that blows for this weapon. Now this weapon is good in expeditions because you can see things from eons away and just charge your Kamehameha and just let it go and watch it sail over there and blow them to fuck, which is fun. But in terms of like normal games, it isn't good. So it really, when it comes down to staves, it's a matter of geometry, where like the worst staff is electrokinetic, because electrokinetic has a cap on like 3 enemies that can hit with the zappy. The Void Strike can hit everything in a line. The Void Blast can hit everything in a circle, so we're talking about more radius, and then the Purgatus can hit everything in a massive cone. So you keep upping the radius, you keep upping the area that they can affect, and that's really what scales the staff damage. So in order to rework this staff, I think they could leave everything about the same. Maybe they could reduce its damage a little bit, but then make the charge like 50% faster. So it's more about like spamming like psychic bowling balls than it is about like charging your Omega like soul bomb and praying that enemies line up for you to hit. Because yeah, that sort of like slow charge, here I go, I'm gonna fire my fucking that just doesn't work anymore with the tempo of the game, unfortunately. But yeah, it needs some love somewhere there. Okay, so we're really getting down to it now. Let's do a little odd one here. We got the Arbites shot, pistol, and shield. This is a really, really solid weapon. I don't think it's in that power creep status. The weapon is hampered by an overall really low ammo count, and of course the reload animation is a long time, but the individual shots are very powerful, and of course the shield. The shield is kind of the selling point for this weapon. Having a shield in a secondary slot is really powerful, especially on a class like Arbites, where the class is already tough as nails, and the only thing that can really kill the guy is getting caught out like wide in the open against a bunch of gunner fire, and this weapon allows you to advance into that sort of stuff. It allows you to at least weather the storm against some otherwise really annoying types of enemies. So if you've got like small scattered gunners or even just a few, like a Reaper, this is an amazing counter to enemies like Reapers, where they are potentially very dangerous, right? A Reaper, if they get wound up and they start shooting at you, they can chop you in half in like a second. They will chew through your health like nothing else. But this shield not only prevents that damage from happening, but of course, at the same time as you're holding the shield up, you can actually be charging. One of my favorite blessings on this, I think like probably one of the best blessings on this is, I forget what it's called, but you stack up strength as you hold down the aim key, which is the block key. So when you're blocking, you're actually stacking the power for your shot up to 40%, and then you unleash a big blast. So you can like one tap that Reaper. It does very, very solid damage. So yeah, really good utility on this weapon, just lacking like, in terms of the raw power of, you can't quite be a carry on its own, but hey, definitely solid, good stats, good utility all around. Let's also give some lip service to the Flamer, which I think falls into the same category. Well, not the same category, but like it is also a massive utility weapon. The Flamer is a power creep weapon, but not in the same sense that a lot of the other ones are. The Flamer is a unique weapon here. Well, kind of, sort of. The Flamer is a weapon that is king of doing what it does, which is if there is a big ass horde in front of you, you turn, turn on the ignition and you just let rip with the entire tank. And just bringing the flamer and bringing the brittleness plus the strength stacking with blaze away, just having that on a build can add 300, 400,000 damage across the course of a game, right? It's not uncommon that I play with like a support zealot who's using chorus and doing like, 200,000, 300,000 total damage with their melee across the whole game, and then they're doing more than that by just the couple of times that you pull out the flamer, because the radius on this thing is really, really big. You can cast it over an entire horde. It does very solid damage as opposed to like the flame staff, which of course the flame staff has a similar sort of capacity here, but the flame staff doesn't deal very much damage into armored targets generally. The flame here does way more. It is very, very directly damaging, and it'll just annihilate. And there's something very satisfying, obviously, about it, but there's something very good about being able to just turn and use one tank of gas and just erase an entire horde in a general direction. And yeah, over the course of the game, like, that adds up, because you can just passively kind of be regenerating ammo from playing with a veteran on your team, and you don't have to worry about picking up any extra. All you need is to have this thing ready and loaded when a big swarm arrives, and your team will thank you for erasing almost all this stuff. So yeah, definitely like one of probably the single strongest secondary you can bring on the class. If you are going for a build where you don't need a mobility secondary and you can spare the time to pull out the flamer and go to town, yeah, definitely like the strongest secondary on the class. You'll need to bring the knives with it though, so that you can actually snipe distant targets, because that of course is a limitation. Then another really strong secondary on the zealot. By the way, it's a zealot weapon, a zealot only weapon. Another really strong secondary on the zealot, but also a strong secondary or strong range weapon on pretty much every class. The veteran, the zealot, and the Arbites all have access to it. The bolter. So the bolter, I think it pretty squarely gets the power creep status. Good thing too, right? This is supposed to be a power weapon. It's supposed to be pretty dang powerful. What it's really, really good at is this is another weapon that is a sniper rifle, and we have two marks of it here. This is the original mark. This is the fast firing, hold down the trigger and go boom, 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 boom. This thing, if you get it lined up properly on a boss, you can just annihilate, right? You can pump some serious damage in a very short amount of time. You can pump it into an approaching horde, and has enough cleave that it'll go through like one or two targets, and then it'll explode them. There's an explosive radius to it. Then we also have the howitzer sort of boom, 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 with a large radius explosion on this one over here, the new variant that was introduced. Oh, I forgot to mention that when I was talking about the bolt pistol. There's two variants. This is the original variant, and this is the new variant with that larger explosive radius. I actually prefer this newer variant. Reason being, most targets, just like with this one, most targets, like individual shotgunners and gunners, are still going to die to a direct hit headshot with this pistol, even though the base damage is a little bit lower. But adding that splash radius allows you to use this to combat other threats. So for the bolt pistol, it's not quite as damaging in a large radius, but it does like shove enemies to the ground, so you can disrupt incoming trappers or dogs. Even if you can't directly hit them, you can knock them over and make them abandon their animation. You can use this to stagger potentially very threatening enemies like Reapers who are getting wound up to start shooting. And then my favorite thing you can do is you can shoot it at your feet as a burster's coming in, and it'll knock the burster back. So you don't even have to have a clear line of sight to hit the burster. You just got to shoot the floor and the burster will go reeling back. Same thing applies here, except for this, the bolter has a so much more damaging explosive radius, so this can actually wipe hordes. So you just start, you can go from sniping targets to just shooting just big chunks of enemies as they come into you. And so that is that's an extra utility that this can bring. Kind of straddles the difference between the sniper, like not the sniper, but like the I would say this one is more about like just full auto blasting, and this one here ends up getting that utility. So I think this one actually might be a little bit superior in terms of the way the game is generally played. I don't see a whole lot of people who are still using the sniping capabilities of this weapon here, or like the full-on blasting capabilities, because enemy health values are so high that a lot of times, like, even that amount of damage isn't sufficient. You need something a little extra, so you're not really going to waste a full mag, because the ammo, by the way, the ammo on this is pretty limited. You have I think it's a 15 round mag, and you have about 115 rounds total when all is told, including any extra ammo, or like the extra ammo on the capacity. So I think that's what, like 7 or 8 mags. So yeah, that's not the most in the world, but it's very, very effective at what it does for each expended mag. So I have to give it the power creep status. It's just a really, really powerful weapon. I'll also give that status to the Void Blast staff, the second best staff in the game. I think this is the only staff that I would say is in a good spot. I don't have any problem with the Void Blast staff. I actually yet to have, I haven't seen anybody complain about this one either way, right? It is not a weapon that is comically overpowered. It is certainly a powerful weapon, right? And you see a lot of very high performance psychers out there in the wild who are demonstrating that, like, this staff has some really, really strong abilities, because of course it staggers everything that it hits, so you can use it to permanently stop enemies from being able to reach you. But it's all down to your skill of placing the reticle properly, of knowing when to charge and when to move, and managing your peril at the same time. So I think this weapon is a really nice blend of skill and positioning and damage. It doesn't really have that much damage, but since it does damage in an area, over time you're going to hit those same targets again and again, and you can kind of migrate that circle around, and eventually targets will die. And since they're like crowd controlled the whole time, you know, you get to kind of juggle them around. So I think this weapon is, I mean, it's obviously like very strong, but at the same time, I think this is so much more what like a staff should be in Darktide, where, like, yes, that is what the Psyker can do. He can do infinite damage potentially, and he can CC stuff infinitely, but he's exposed while he's doing that. He's generating peril while he's doing that, and he like actually has limits to that power, right? It's only in a certain range in front of him, and it's only in a small radius. He can still be crept up on and, like, you know, grouped up on, and it requires a lot of skill and positioning to effectively use it. So I think this one's in a really, really good spot. I wouldn't see anything changed about this staff, to be quite honest with you. The staff that I would see something changed to is the Purgative staff, which is going to be our first in the overkill category here. This staff is just too it's too dominant. It is too synergistic with the Psyker tree as a whole, is I think maybe my my easiest criticism to make of it here. So basically the Psyker tree has a ton of talents wrapped into it that have various like power levels that can grant you when you claim kills with Soul Blaze. And of course there's lots of other ways to grant Soul Blaze, right? You can get Soul Blaze off of melee attacks with some of the Force Swords. You can get Soul Blaze off of hitting crits with the Void Blast staff here, but this staff applies Soul Blaze directly. So you end up having this incredible synergy with this weapon where you can always be getting kills with Soul Blaze, and therefore immediately stacking up your charges of Warp Siphon, which keeps your cooldown super low, and then it also gives you a guaranteed regeneration effect. It gives you a guaranteed 5% crit. You then take that crit, because this weapon can crit for some reason, and wrap that into getting crits very, very rapidly, which will boost your movement speed through metal. It'll also boost your toughness regeneration through the talent that's right below that. And then, of course, you have Empathic Evasion, which every time you crit, you get 1 second of evading all range attacks. And because this weapon can crit multiple times per second, right? It's hitting over and over and over again as you're flaming enemies. Every enemy in front of you is going tick, 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 tick. If any of those gets a crit, you are now immune to ranged attacks for 1 second. So all Psykers have to do is advance on the enemies and slide into position while they're dodging those ranged attacks, and then start flaming. And then if they get a crit, now from this point on, basically as long as they keep that flame on, they are not able to be hit by any ranged enemies. So it allows them to play overly aggressive with what should be a weapon where you are fragile. And this weapon also, of course, has really low peril generation. It is easily the best staff in terms of like how capable it is per charge. Like, you can charge the thing over and over and over and keep shooting out gouts of flame, and it's very hard to actually overheat or overperil yourself and kill yourself with this thing. It's just incredibly synergistic with so much of the tree, and it's so easy to use. And at the same time, also, it has all of this unique stuff that only the staff can do, like exploiting empathic evasion, like the fact that the left click, the little flush of what do you call it, soul blaze, like you shoot a little spurt of it out, that actually has enough stagger to stagger ragers permanently, so you can keep just doing it over and over. So you're making it so that many enemies that would try to approach you, like you'd think ragers would be immune or like relatively resistant to stagger, and that would be a threat to a low impact weapon like this, but for some reason the left click has this immense stagger to it that can push them back. It also happens to suppress enemies. It's incredibly suppressive to all ranged enemies, so if a Psyker with a flame staff gets onto gunners of any sort, they don't even attempt to fight. They all freak out and panic immediately. So you'll see everybody that gets touched by the flames is immediately full suppressed, running and ducking for cover. To give you some comparison, we'll talk about the plasma gun in a second, but the plasma gun has a fear radius of like 20 feet around it. When you kill a target with the plasma gun, everything in 20-foot radius around it gets feared, and they run for cover, which makes sense because the person that got hit exploded. But the flame staff here, the Pregatus staff, if you just kind of cast this over the whole group, every enemy is now like running around, because of course their skin is melting. But I think for the sake of balance, something needs to give here. And I hate to say like nerf this staff, but rather than nerf Psyker, and Psyker is also very, very powerful on his own, but rather than nerf Psyker, I think that this is probably the linchpin that is making him be so incredibly dominant. You can literally build a dog shit anything build. You could take no talent points and run this staff into a Havoc 40 and put out like 3 million damage, because it's just that powerful as a tool. It's a literal infinite ammo flamethrower with zero downtime. You can always be casting it. It has no like real mobility penalties. There's no danger to overheating yourself. Yeah, it's all upsides, no downsides, immaculately synergistic, and it just kind of like is a spoiler for everything else that you could be running on the class. And there's not that much diversity in casting. People want to play this class to play the caster class, and this is what it kind of pigeonholes you into. Because if you want to run with any of that Soul Blaze stuff, you can do it through the other things, right? They can proc Soul Blaze, but nowhere near as often as this staff can. And so you're just going to be oriented towards using Flame Staff. So yes, of course, you can choose not to use it if you just really, really don't want to, but I would so much rather see a situation where this staff is toned down and then all the other staffs are brought up in their various aspects, maybe excepting the Void Blast staff, and then there's like an actual diverse choice to be made for builds. Because right now, there really is no choice. Unless you're going for a meme build where you're just left-clicking with the electrokinetic staff or something, there's zero choice to be made. There's a one default de facto best staff for every situation that melts every target. And this thing also, by the way, the Soul Blaze is so stupid. The fact that it stays on targets for as long as it does, and overcaps with Venting Shriek. Of course, there's a synergy with Venting Shriek here. Of course, there's just, you can increase the damage of the Soul Blaze by swapping to your melee weapon and stacking Rending with Uncanny Strike. So it's just like all the worst stuff in the game all combine to make this weapon that is brainless, and you just kind of walk through the level and just look left and right and spray, because there's no aiming accuracy necessary. It's just a spray and pray, walk through the hordes and just keep your distance. And you know, I didn't think it was that egregious, because I wasn't a big Psyker player, and then I started playing Psyker and I was like, oh, this is pretty fucking powerful. And then I played Hive Scum and I learned how to position and evade, use my range attacks without getting hit in melee. And once you can unlock that skill of not being able to be hit in melee by targets while you're using your range attack, you'll literally just become unstoppable with this weapon. You can solo anything with it, and yeah, it's just not like, it's just not fair. It's not that fun. So yeah, I'm gonna say that's definitely overkill for the game's current power level, and it makes it like feel silly
to even try to contribute to teams when you have a Psyker with one of them on there, especially if you're playing in lower difficulties, because they just kill everything for you. Plasma Gun, though, I don't think is in this category anymore. I think that Plasma Gun has received, it's received this nerf to the light attack spam, and honestly, like, Plasma Gun, yes, it is powerful, yes, it can cross-map, delete most stuff in, like, one hit, especially at lower difficulties, but I was never really, like, the biggest plasma hater in the world. It just really stands out that the plasma is so much more powerful than a lot of the stuff down here. So I think a really apt comparison is that, like, this weapon, the plasma gun, is pinpoint precise accurate. It does like 600 plus damage on a light attack, and it gets 101 light attacks, and you only have to reload one time in that 101. You get 50 shots before you have to reload. So how is that comparable to the Revolver? The Revolver gets like 60, I think I said 69 shots, right? So you get like 60 something shots with the Revolver, and you have to reload every 5 shots for a long ass time. The heat never comes into the equation with the plasma gun. It's really not a consideration. And this thing, of course, previously at an infinite cleave, you get to go through everything in a big long line. Now you do have to like charged up to get that effect, but still, like, that's just so much better than like everything else down here. So I understand that like some of these weapons have better ammo sustain, but in terms of like long distance sniping and dealing damage, because there's no fall off or anything, and the size of the projectile is like the size of a tree trunk, so you like can't miss, and it staggers, of course. So it's not encumbering enough. It's not, this is a heavy weapon. It's supposed to be a heavy energy weapon, and it doesn't feel like I'm having to lug around something encumbering. It feels 10 times more like of an endeavor to pull out a Ripper gun than it does for the veteran to equip the plasma gun and snap off a shot, even a charge shot really quickly, and then go back to meleeing within like a second. So it just doesn't feel, for as powerful as it is, it doesn't feel like you're weighed down by accessing that power. It just feels like any other gun, just with like huge fucking massive stat numbers on there. So I just think I've always felt like this weapon was like really overstated, but again, it is a power weapon, right? It just would make more sense to me if it was more dangerous to play with, or it had like less resources available. I don't know what they'd do, but it's probably fine right there. Whatever. I'll give the twin pistols here, I'm going to give them solid. I don't think these are power creep weapons. I think these are easily the most reasonable range weapon for the Hive Scum. They're Hive Scum exclusives, of course. So easily the most reasonable. They're very, very accurate now. They reduced their spread even more in this last patch. They upped their damage like a little bit. But yeah, they're super freaking accurate, which is good, because like that's the one thing they have going for them, is like they have distance accuracy. The shredder, or not the shredder, but like these pistols here, what do they call them? Auto pistols. These things can't hit anything. Like they are not hitting anything distant. So this is like your accurate choice, and they're very mobile, and they are very they're very flashy to play with. I like the little twirl animation, but more importantly here is that they are fast to reload. So like this is a good quality sidearm, and yeah, I think that there's like no problem with this being on the class. I don't think it's particularly very well statted for like doing Desperado or anything with, but if you wanted to run just any other build and have a good little sidearm where you can pick specials and stuff, great, awesome, that's a good choice for it. The problem with that is that Needle Pistol exists, and Needle Pistol is the other and only other overkill weapon, I think, currently. And you'll notice that one thing these two weapons, this is like both marks of it, right? The Mark II, which I believe is this one, is the really egregious one, because it has 2 modes, and the blue mode causes enemies to explode and spread toxin to the enemies around them. The yellow mode puts double the amount of toxin stacks, puts 6 stacks per hit. The other one just does direct damage, so you're going to lose out, yes, on the spreading of the toxin thing, but really that's not that necessary. It certainly will let you do a bunch more damage if you're like shooting hordes of it to, cheat, basically farm damage off of hordes. But the real thing that's egregious about these weapons is that toxin is such an insanely powerful damage over time element, and damage over time in general, as we've established, like look at the weapons that have damage over time effects. The Recon Lasgun, the Flame Staff, and the Needle Pistol all have damage over time effects, and damage over time on ranged is disgustingly strong, because you don't have to get anywhere near the enemy And then, of course, like damage over time when you're in melee and you're applying bleed. Oh, and also the bolt pistol, right? This has bleed. This has toxin. This has warp fire, and this has burn. So there's all 4 of them covered, right? And they're all at the top of the list because, like, basically, if you're applying bleed and stuff in melee, it makes sense, right? You're gonna get those bleeds on those enemies, and then you have to evade or block the enemies while they exsanguinate and die. So there's like a, you know, a waiting game to be played there. But with these weapons, because you can engage from so far away, especially with like the needle pistol here, you can see a crusher who's clear across the arena. You shoot him 3 times on Havoc 40 and he's dead. He's guaranteed dead. He will not survive that. 18 stacks is enough to kill him. So you just shoot him 3 times and you watch him as he walks towards you, and you already know in the back of your mind, he's going to die before he gets here. And yes, sure, it takes a while, but the Hive Scum can infinitely sustain ammo thanks to Pickpocket, and this weapon can one-tap every enemy short of a mauler. So like all gunners, all shotgunners, all specials, I think maybe except for like the mutant, but all specials are dying in 1 shot of yellow, which is 6 stacks of toxin, and it just eats them. It just eats them. So like you hit them 1 time and they are now dead. So it's like just a fire and forget weapon. And then what you end up doing is you see a big pack of metal and you just go ahead and go shoot your 6 shots at it and you're done. And then like half of them are just gonna die. And then you reload and you shoot it again. And of course you can just rinse and repeat this because Hive Scum can produce 20% of his ammo for free by getting a single melee kill on any elite or special, which is like super brain dead easy to do. So I think this weapon is entirely overstated and is like, it is so hands down obviously the secondary choice for any non-range focused class. Like if you're going Desperado, sure, don't use this weapon. But even then, it might be pretty freaking good. It doesn't have great synergy with like direct kill things, but it guarantees that every time you get the kill, you're going to get a 2% for killing with sample collector. So you're going to get your stims back way faster. It's super synergistic with a ton of on toxin kill or on toxin application talents. And I almost forgot to mention bosses, boss damage, forget about it. Holy shit. There is no reason why the ADM of this weapon into unyielding for monstrosity bosses needs to be like 0.9 or whatever it is, meaning like it has incredible damage efficacy because it applies 6 stacks per shot, right? The maximum caps for stacks is 30. When you have 30 stacks, you're dealing something like 3,000 damage per second with the toxin. So you just shoot them 5 times, 6 times right off the start of the combat, and then all you have to do is like hit him with a crit every couple seconds to keep those caps at 30. You'll do hundreds of thousands, right? I could probably pull it up, but you've probably seen it before. Like you pull up any game where I'm just playing a dumbass like support Hive Scum where I have no talent points in damage. I have no talent points in like, I'm just all about tanking. I'm all about providing team utility. And yet I am double the rest of the team's damage on bosses because every boss that comes along, I immediately 30 stack them on toxin. And then I just go and melee them Unga Bunga style. And that's it. That's enough to deal 75,000 damage to every boss. And I don't even have to get near them. I could just shoot them 6 times with that and then just block for the rest of the time, and it wouldn't even matter. So yeah, I think this weapon is super brain dead. As I was alluding to before I got myself distracted, the worst weapons in the game, or like not the worst, but like the most egregious weapons in the game, the ones that are the most brain dead to play, all have these damage over time effects where you shoot an enemy like a couple of times and then they just die from there because the damage over time can kill them before they can even get to you. And this one is the worst about that by far, I would say. Like these damage over time effects, because they have a 0.9 damage efficacy into Carapace, the one type of enemy that's really supposed to be like the quote-unquote counter to light gunner fire or flames or bleeds or whatever it is, gets eviscerated by toxin. And it's even worse that like, really, really challenging modes like Havoc, where there's a bunch of enemies, you even have rotten armor in there, which stacks extra damage resistance. It's supposed to make these enemies impossible to kill, but guess what sort of damage doesn't get reduced by those damage resistances and stuff? It's damage over time. So you end up like gravitating towards these weapons even more. And yeah, so I think that of all the weapons, so to wrap up the list, I think of all the weapons here, in terms of the ones that I would really want to see, like, brought down, it would be just these two up here. I think that, like, honestly, everything here can just stay. I'm fine. Like, I know some of them are really powerful, but I'm fine with that being the place that Darktide's at, where there are power weapons, there are power builds. I'm not fine with these weapons where it's like fire and forget, and you just kind of like throw the damage out there to the wind, and then you watch as half the enemies fall to the, like, just fall to their knees and die without even interacting with them. I find playing with these weapons, while effective, very unengaging and very like antithetical to the game. There is nothing less thrilling than playing with a damage over time build. You know, if you've ever played Path of Exile, I think one of the most mind-numbing ways to level and play in Path of Exile, albeit effective, is like an Essence Drain build, where you're just applying like a leeching magic to enemies, and you just watch their health bar goes and dies. And that's exactly what this is. I would so much rather see a meta where my blasters, my guns, my zappy like electric staves, my big shooties, I want these to be juiced up, right? Let's get a patch in here, Fetcher. Let's get a patch in here where you just literally take all these weapons, do what you did to the dueling sword back in patch 14, and literally just double every stat on them. Double their like crit rate, double their damage, double their magazine capacity, whatever it is. Just go crazy for like one patch and see what it does. Will these weapons be better than some of the stuff up here? Some of them probably not, even with a doubling, right? But that's the sort of thing you have to do if you're going to like try to rein in the comical imbalance that we have, because these are just like so useless as to the point of like non-existence. And it's really sad because this represents a big portion of the weapons on like RBDs and a lot of those humanoid classes. Like, they have 1/3 of their weapons taken up by these autogun slots that are just garbage, and then their other choices are like shotguns, which don't fit the same rule at all. People want to use bullet guns, right? They don't want to just use las guns all the time. And look at the choices up here. It's like las guns, bolt pistol, bolts, plasma, fire, grenade. Here's 2 shotguns, we got those, right? But like, and then here's a Uzis, but like, oh, everything else is just like explosives, AoEs, burns, dots. Yeah, I think I would love to see some direct damage emphasis in this here. But anyway, guys, I think that's long enough for the video. Hopefully it makes sense to you. Hopefully you agree, or whatever, disagree. Hey, I recorded this on April Fools, so yeah, if you disagree, I was just joking. Haha, JK, I got you. Comment down below, and I'll see you next time. Mr. Rion, bye-bye.